G'day. It's Nicky and welcome to Wicked Wildlife. Now in this episode, we're doing a bit of a reply to a video recently put out by a mate of mine over in South Africa, Dingo Dinkelman, comparing this girl here, the inland taipan, to his snake, the black mamba, talking about why the black mamba is more dangerous than the taipan. So today I thought we'll get out our inland taipan and one of our coastal taipans and do our own comparison on who's more dangerous, the taipans or the black mamba. Stick around, guys, it should be a good one.
Pretty dangerous. More wicked wildlife encounters. This is Tully, our resident scrub dog, member to our wild family. Here's here in Australia. Have a look. We've got two different other snakes in front today. I hope you have a great one and take care.
So, first things first, I'd like to give a big shout out to my mate Dingo over in South Africa for letting us use a bit of his footage of him with the black mambas. You see, here in Australia, I obviously can't show you black mambas. There's none in captivity at any zoo in Australia. Now, as far as the video goes, he was comparing his snakes to this girl here, the inland taipan, who's the most venomous snake on the planet. But there's another taipan that a few people in the comment section over there suggested might be a more accurate comparison, and that's the coastal taipan. So today we're going to put the three together, the coastal taipan, the inland taipan, and the black mamba. So in order to compare these species, Dingo's had a couple of different categories that he's put them up against each other, and the first one is size. Now, Slug here is a pretty big taipan. She's maybe 1.5 meters long, and these guys only get to about 2 meters long. Compare that to the black mamba, who has a record of about 4.5 meters long, making it the second longest venomous snake on earth, behind only the king cobra. And you can see the mamba definitely outdoes the inland taipan on size. That being said, 4.5 meter mambas are pretty well unheard of these days, but they still average at around the 3.2 meter long mark when they're fully grown. So they're a big snake. Now, 3 meters might be a hell of a big snake, and the inland taipan certainly doesn't get that big. But this guy here, the coastal taipan, can average at 1.8 to 2 meters long in big specimens, but they've actually been recorded very, very close to the 3 meter mark. Now, it doesn't make them nearly as big as the mambas when you're comparing the maximum size to the average size, but it does put them at about the 4th longest venomous snake on the planet. So they're certainly still in the same sort of zone of competing, I suppose. They're not exactly a small venomous snake. Now, it's important to point out that these comparisons, using size to determine how dangerous a snake could be, is basically specifically for somebody who's handling it. If you're out in the bush, a large snake arguably is going to be easy to see, is not really going to make a difference, whether it's big or small. The flip side for somebody like myself or Dingo, who's actually handling these animals, is a large snake. If you're tailing him, he can come up a long way on his own body. He's also got a very large strike range. You can imagine a snake can only strike a certain percentage of his body, and a percentage of 3 meters is a lot bigger than a percentage of 1 meter. So size can actually play a fairly significant role in how we can handle a snake. But while the coastal taipan can get pretty big, the mamba still just edges him out on number 1, size. The second category, which we're using to compare these animals, is personality. Now, if you've seen Dingo's video of the black mamba, mambas are a pretty fiery personality. They're quick moving, they're pretty happy to bite if push comes to shove, but the coastal taipan can be very similar. He's pretty ready to bite, he more often than not injects venom. Now, the inland taipan, this girl here, Slug, has a reputation for being really cruisy, and you can see she's not exactly the meanest snake on the planet to handle. The flip side of this, though, is from a handler's perspective. These guys have a bad habit of luring keepers in with false sense of security. People get complacent with these guys. They think that taipans are all puppy dogs. Now, this girl here, Slug, she's not too bad, but she actually bit her last owner a couple of years ago, the day before she came to live with me. And while he's still doing all right today, he spent 11 days in hospital suffering the effects from the venom of this girl here. So, as far as personality goes, she might not be 100 k's an hour all the time, but when she wants to, she can go from 1 to 100 in the blink of an eye. So the taipan might have a cruisier disposition as a general rule of thumb, but it's not to say she's not capable of that cranky outburst that you might imagine the black mamba possessing. However, the mamba probably edges the taipan out here as well. While the taipan can go from 0 to 100 and have a one way or the other personality, the mamba's default setting is basically a cranky snake. So, as far as a personality goes, I think the mamba could be more dangerous again. Now, surprise, surprise, the category where the taipan really forges ahead is toxicity, her venom. This girl here is the most venomous snake on the planet, number one. And in toxicity testing, LD50 testing, inland taipans only need 0.025 milligrams of venom per kilogram of body weight to kill their victim. Now, this puts them at number one in the world. That being said, the inland taipan here, in a laboratory situation, injects an average of 44 milligrams of venom per bite and is capable of injecting 110. The black mamba, on the other hand, injects an average of 100 milligrams plus and has been recorded to inject a whopping 400 milligrams of venom per bite. So while this girl here, the inland taipan, is significantly more venomous than the black mamba does inject a lot more venom. In between those two, however, we've got this girl here, the coastal taipan, who works out to be about 4 times less venomous than the inland. However, it's still 3 times more venomous, more toxic than the black mamba. So the inland and the mamba might have a lot more venom, but the inland is so much more toxic that the numbers kind of make up for themselves. This girl, however, is still significantly more venomous than the mamba, but puts out a very similar quantity of venom. In fact, the coastal taipan averages about 120 milligrams of venom per bite, and again is capable of up to 400 milligrams. So she can put out every bit as much venom as a mamba can, but it's significantly more venomous, 3 times more venomous. Now, while these numbers might be impressive to know, what do they mean to you, or the person out in the bush or out in the field who's bitten by one of these guys? At the end of the day, it doesn't mean much. You see, we talk about one snake or another snake. This one can kill you 120 times, and this snake can kill you 72 times. At the end of the day, you can only die once. So it's interesting to know these things. And sure, it plays some role with just how bad things can get. However, you're kind of comparing getting run over by 2 different models of trucks. Either way, you're a pancake. It doesn't really make too much of a difference. That being said, for topic number 3, venom, the inland taipan and the coastal taipan definitely come out ahead of the black mamba. Another comparison that Dingo points out pretty well is speed. Now, it's pretty well known that the black mamba is the fastest land snake on the planet. However, all snakes that are like this, the taipans, the brown snakes, they're still capable of moving pretty quick. Maybe not quite as quick as the black mamba, but pretty quick. The flip side is the mamba seems to do everything quick. It's not like the taipan or the brown where they can turn on speed when they need to. They're just fast-acting, fast-thinking, fast-moving snakes. However, like the other categories, this really applies to somebody handling or trying to catch the animal. They're moving fast, everything happens quickly. As far as dealing with them in the wild, a fast-moving snake isn't necessarily a more dangerous snake. Now, while my snakes sit still pretty readily, they're pretty used to handling because they do educational displays for a living. In Dingo's video, you can see really, really well that when the snake's got somewhere to retreat to, like when he's near the bushes, they're using that speed to get away from you rather than get towards you. It's only when he's caught way out in the open, where he thinks he can't beat you to safety, that he uses that speed to come towards you. And that's something you don't want happening. Now, the coastal taipan's also known to do this from time to time in Papua New Guinea. On jungle tracks and things like this, when somebody surprises them and they're too close, these guys have also been recorded coming towards what they perceive as the aggressor. It's not because, they want to bite you, it's because they want you to move out of the way so that they can get to safety. But if you don't, push comes to shove, both of them are going to bite. But the black mamba is still the faster of the 3 snakes. So, bearing in mind these categories, who's the more dangerous snake, the taipans or the mamba? Now, while the inland and the coastal taipan are both significantly more venomous than that mamba, just due to the large size, the incredible speed that the mamba has, and that willingness to bite, I think from a handler's perspective, hands down, the mamba has to be more dangerous than the taipan. Now, like I said, at the end of the day, we're still comparing 2 different Mack trucks. You're going to get run over by one or the other. You want to avoid them both. However, I've got to take my hats off to Dingo. Those mambas are crazy looking snakes to handle. As far as what this means for somebody out in the wild, the average person, however, things become a little bit more blurry. Like I said, a lot of these factors that we've talked about really apply to somebody holding on to the other end of the snake or working with or catching or relocating. these snakes. Now, as far as it comes to in the wild, the inland taipan's not even in the competition. They live in the middle of nowhere, a very remote area with very few people. And in fact, bites in the wild are almost unheard of. There's only been a couple, and they're all people going out of their way to look for and interact with taipans. Now, the black mamba, on the other hand, lives over a pretty big section of South Africa and comes in contact with a lot of people, particularly in rural and regional areas where they might not be very close to medical help. That being said, over a 22-year study done in South Africa of 2,500 snakebite cases that came into various hospitals, about 75 of those bites were black mambas and only 21 died. So they certainly kill a lot more people than the inland taipan, who, as far as I can find, hasn't killed anybody. It still works out to kill a lot less people than all these other snakes that they have in Africa. But what about this girl? What about the coastal taipan? Now, here in Australia, in the last couple of years, we've had a handful of people killed by coastal taipans. One of them was a very well-known snake catcher, and there's been a couple of members of the public bitten and killed by coastal taipans as well. But the coastal taipan's not only found in Australia, it pushes way up into Papua New Guinea, where it bites a lot more people. In fact, in Papua New Guinea, which has a fairly small population compared to most other countries, they have 600 people a year die of snakebite, and about 85% of those snakebite deaths are due to the coastal, or the Papuan, they call it up there, the Papuan taipan. So, from a handler's perspective, I think hats off to dingo. The black mamba has to be the more dangerous snake to handle. But due to the amount of people that the coastal taipan's living around up in Papua New Guinea, not so much here in Australia, the proximity, how long it takes for these people to get to help, and how they generally try to use tribal medicines, ancient rituals first before going to hospital. Despite the fact that that mamba might be a bigger, faster snake, the coastal taipan probably still kills a lot more people. Now, at the end of the day, what I think it's a great example of is no matter how many categories, no matter what we use to identify how dangerous a snake is, the biggest determining factor with how likely you are to get bitten, or how likely a person is to get bitten, is the human factor. How much people are spending time around it. What are people doing with this snake? What do they do after they get bitten by this snake? This is what determines how dangerous a snake really is for somebody out in the field. So, at the end of the day, mamba, taipan, cobra, as long as we leave these snakes alone, odds are they're going to leave us alone and it's going to be okay. Because snakes, just like any other animal, they want to live out their days. They don't want to get in the way of something big and scary like a human being. So if we leave them be, they're going to leave us be. Now, that being said, thank you for watching, guys, and I hope you've enjoyed our video. If you haven't watched Dingo's videos yet, please go on over to his channel, Dingo Dinkelman, and say a big hello from everybody here in Australia. Tell him Wicked Wildlife sent you. Now, if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel, like us on Facebook, wherever you watch us, and if you want to help us bring out more videos, do this more regularly, and go and visit more animals, think about supporting us on Patreon. And we've got a couple of perks on Patreon these days. You can get some magnets with snakebite safety information on them, some Wicked Wildlife bumper stickers. So patreon.com/Wicked Wildlife, and you can find out more about that. But other than that, guys, thanks for watching. As always, be nice to snakes. Have a good one and take care.